Welcome to this forum between candidates for Judge of Lackawanna County Court of Common Pleas. Tonight's forum is sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Lackawanna County and the Center for Ethics and Excellence in Public Service at the University of Scranton. My name is Diana Dakey, currently president of the League of Women Voters of Lackawanna County. The mission of the League of Women Voters is to promote participation by informed citizens in their government. The League of Women Voters is nonpartisan, which means we do not support or oppose any political party or candidate. We are an organization of men and women of voting age. I encourage our viewers to join the League, which you can do on our website, lwvlackawanna.org. Membership connects you with 3 levels of the League: local, state, and national. This fall, due to COVID, we will be conducting a series of candidate forums via Zoom between October 13th and 23rd. All will be recorded and available for viewing from a link on our website, lwvlackawanna.org. We hope you will view all of them and be an informed voter as you head to the polls. Diane Madre will serve as moderator for tonight's forum. She is a member of the League, mental health counselor, and women's advocate who founded a platform called Let the Women Speak. Thank you, and I will turn the forum over to Diane.
Thank you, Diana, and good evening again, ladies. Thank you for viewing this voter education program of the League of Women Voters of Lackawanna County and co-sponsor with the Center for Ethics and Excellence in Public Service at the University of Scranton. This forum is between and amongst the candidates for race and office for the municipal general election to take place on November 2nd, 2021. The League of Women Voters of Lackawanna County conducts candidate forums so that voters can make informed choices at the polls. Again, my name is Diane Madre, a member of the League of Women Voters of Lackawanna County. This November 2nd is a municipal general election for Lackawanna County Court of Common Pleas between candidates Nisha Arora and Mary Walsh Dempsey. In the May primary elections, both candidates cross-filed. Ms. Arora won the Republican primary and Ms. Dempsey won the Democratic primary. This is an open seat election, meaning that there is no incumbent running for re-election, in that Judge Munley reached the mandatory retirement age. Candidates will be asked a series of questions. We'll start with Mary Walsh Dempsey, and then Nisha Arora will answer the same question accordingly. Ladies, are we ready? Can you hear me? Okay. So we can start the timer once the question is read. First question. Increasingly, judges are called upon to possess strong administrative skills in order to balance effectively the demands of long court lists and complex litigation. Please describe your administrative experience and your primary strengths as an administrator and/or supervisor. I'll repeat that one more time. Increasingly, judges are called upon to possess strong administrative skills in order to balance effectively the demands of long court lists and complex litigations. Please describe your administrative experience and your primary strengths as an administrator and/or supervisor. Time starts now. Mary?
Thank you. Yes, this question is a good one for me. A few things are relevant to this for me. Number one, at my old law firm of O'Malley and Langen, I was in fact the managing partner of that firm for, I'm going to say, about 6 years. There was 3 separate businesses there, 3 separate offices in different locations, and we had well over 30 employees where I was the managing partner, responsible for payroll, responsible for bills, et cetera. So in terms of administration, that is something that I had to do, something that I'm used to in terms of managing. Obviously, as an attorney, especially in litigation, you also manage your own paralegal and your own secretary. I've also handled what we call complex civil litigation. And some of those are protracted cases. Many of mine were class action cases, and some of them were called multi-district litigation cases, which quite frankly get quite convoluted and quite difficult in terms of keeping your deadlines, keeping your statutes, et cetera. So it's not uncommon, especially in the work I do, to get a very, very detailed case management order where you have to make sure that you follow it to the T in terms of dates, times, and places. The other thing that I think is important about that is you said what type of traits, or I'm organized, I'm detailed, probably to a fault many times. I pay attention. I know what's going on at all times. I'm constantly making sure that my calendar is up to date. When I get cases, I want to make sure things are, if at all possible, put in early. I don't like to wait until the last minute at all. That's not how I work. If I can see any way to improve anything from an organizational fashion or from an administrative role, I don't mind making the recommendation. I do it in a very diplomatic fashion as a recommendation only. Many times those recommendations have been accepted as a better way to handle things just based on observations that I've seen. So I think overall, I'd say the two things. Number one, acting as a managing partner in my former law firm. And number two, the complex civil litigation that I've had to handle over the course of my career. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Nisha, Arora, should I repeat the question or you're good?
No, I'm good. I can answer it. Yeah. So I would say that administrative skills are actually one of my strengths just because I handle and manage so many people on a daily basis. So my administrative experience probably started when I started helping my mom with her real estate business when I was about 12 years old. I instituted a new way of doing the real estate fact sheets for her. They used to be handwritten, and I insisted that they be typed because they look too messy being handwritten. So moving forward from that, obviously, I've expanded my experience. When I was a law clerk for Judge Brace at the Court of Common Pleas, they had just introduced the electronic calendar to the entire courthouse. So you can imagine what a tizzy everyone was in because they had been keeping paper calendars before then. So I think the electronic case scheduling calendar really helped everyone move forward. Also, the ability to email court orders to attorneys really helped everyone move forward because before that they had been mailed via US mail or faxed in certain instances. Beyond that, administrative experience and skills. When I was in family law, we were obviously responsible for preparing and submitting our own court documents. We had paralegals to help us. So I think we supervised, each of us had our own paralegal, and there were probably 7 total there. And then once I moved on from that, now I manage, there's over 100 agents that I work with at our real estate company. I also manage my own real estate legal practice. And I think last year we did over 230 closings. So that's quite a bit of detail-oriented work with as well as with litigation. Litigation is very schedule oriented and you have to submit documents on time. You need to make sure that you have all the information you need before you need to submit it. So good note taking and being able to sit with your clients and extrapolate what you need from them is really important when submitting briefs and case filings. With real estate law, it's a little bit different because it's very detail oriented, but you're mostly dealing with the lender with bank documents. So yeah, I think really strong administrative experience throughout the years.
Thank you, Nisha.
Thank you.
So since Mary went first, you'll go first on the second question. And for the timekeeper, we're going to give an extra minute on this particular question. This is in order to help our voters to get to know the candidates a little bit stronger. So here's question number 2. Anisha, this starts with you. According to the American Bar Association and the Pennsylvania Bar Association Judicial Evaluation Commission, a judge must possess judicial temperament. And this is in 2 parts. A, what does judicial temperament mean to you in a courtroom? B, name at least 3 in order of importance to you for equal justice. So again, According to the American Bar Association and the Pennsylvania Bar Association Judicial Evaluation Commission, a judge must possess judicial temperament. A, what does judicial temperament mean to you in a courtroom? B, name at least 3 in order of importance to you for equal justice.
Name
At least three in order of importance to you for equal justice in regards to the judicial temperament.
3 qualities.
3 qualities, correct.
Okay, all right. So judicial temperament, I think, is truly one of the most important qualities that a judge should possess. And having had the experience to work directly with many judges during my clerkship, during my years at the courthouse, I was able to experience judicial temperament firsthand. One of the most important things, obviously, is patience, because your calendar is dependent on the hearings that you have. So some of them will be longer, some of them will be shorter. I think one of the other most important qualities of judicial temperament is the ability to listen. I think one of the most important qualities a judge can have is to listen, because your job is to listen in the courtroom, listen to the plaintiffs, listen to the defendants, listen to the attorneys, and listen to any witnesses, listen to testimony. Being able to listen is not just hearing. You need to listen to intonation and mood and all of the different nuances that come along with that. I think judicial temperament also involves having the ability to be fair and impartial. All judges obviously need to possess this quality. You cannot bring with you your own opinions or your own sense of bias. I'd say bias has no place in the courtroom, and judges need to take one step further to work to remove their own inherent biases. So those would be, I guess I answered the question in the opposite order, because those would be 3 qualities that I think are most important towards judicial temperament. To me personally, judicial temperament is the way that you the way that you present yourself to others. So I think that all people who come into my courtroom, should I be elected, would obviously be treated with respect, because the way I was raised is, in the Hindu culture, if you have a guest who comes into your home, you treat them better than you treat even your own family members in your home. So when people come into our office, or we have clients in here for a closing, obviously you make a certain effort to make them feel comfortable and at home. Now, a courtroom is a much more formal environment, but I still think sitting up on the bench, they shouldn't feel that you are looking down on them. They should feel that they're there and they're able to voice whatever they need to voice in that courtroom, and they're able to be heard. Judicial temperament also means to me the ability to see both sides, or see all sides of every situation. So that open-mindedness, I think, is really important. And to wrap it up, I think that being an attorney, obviously you've learned to listen to your clients. That really does help as you take the bench. You just need to increase that ability tenfold, because you're not just listening to one person, you're listening to an entire courtroom. Thank you.
Mary Dempsey?
Am I okay to go now, Diane? Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm going to do, I think, what Nisha did as well, and do the first 3 qualities first, and then go back to the rest of the answer. I think the ones that probably, in my estimation, in order to promote, or in order to help equal access to justice, is I think there's always got to be a deep, deep sense of diplomacy. You must be open-minded on any case. And having been in litigation for 30 years, there are cases that you disagree with someone vehemently, yet you must remain calm, you must remain diplomatic, and you must respect the other person. I always say in my campaign speeches, the maintenance man and the CEO will receive the same respect from me if elected. So that's one. I think there has to be a willingness to hear all sides. You've got to sit there, and sometimes, like, it's back and forth, and a 15-minute hearing may end up being 2 hours. but that is their day in court, and that's part of equal access to justice. So as a judge, you've got to sit there, you've got to listen, and you've got to take it to heart what's being said in order to make sure that your litigants are being treated fairly and that they have equal access to justice. I think one of the final things is making sure that the rights of the parties are respected. A lot of times in certain cases, especially in litigation cases, people come in, maybe using an attitude is a strong word, but you want them to know that you're there to hear them and to listen to them. And you want them to know that you're going to respect their point of view as well as you're going to respect the other side's point of view, regardless of your personal feelings. I mean, this is one of the hallmarks of being a good judge, is being able to put your own personal feeling aside and being able to look at the facts of the case and apply the law. So I think those are three things in particular that I would be concerned about with, again, equal access to justice. Now, judicial temperament, this is a little comical because, I mean, sometimes in litigation, you know, people like to scream and yell. I have kind of perfected this over the years because I've been doing it so long. You must be patient. You must be calm. But at the same time, you have to be firm and tenacious, okay? You have to show some compassion and empathy, but you also have to understand that there are two sides to every story. You always, because one of our roles is, you know, in many cases trying to participate in conflict resolution, again, it requires us to deal with everybody calmly and courteously and listen to them and make sure that they know that their best interests are being listened to by the judge at hand. It goes to say, without saying, it requires an even disposition. You know, I've used the word diplomacy before, that you're calm, that you're going to listen to people. You must put aside your personal feelings. There cannot be any arrogance. There cannot be any impatience. You cannot be arbitrary. You've got to sit there and listen to the rights of the parties, and you've got to make sure that they know it's their day in court and that you're respecting it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Okay, so this is question number 3. We're going to jump back to Mary. You will go first. So the question is, and we're going to go back to 2 minutes on this one.
Okay.
What concerns, if any, do you have transitioning from lawyer, advocate to the role of judge in the courtroom? What concerns, if any, do you have transitioning from lawyer/advocate to the role of judge in the courtroom?
I have been blessed with a great career in the law. And one of the reasons I've been blessed is because I am a passionate advocate for my clients. And when you are a passionate advocate for your clients, you are historically representing one party, which is what I have done for 30 years in my career. Do I think this is something that would prevent me from being a judge? Not at all, because if you look at the judges that are sitting there, they've all done this at one point or another as well. They've either been district attorneys where they've represented one party, or they've been plaintiffs' lawyers or defense lawyers where they've represented one party. So all of us can get over this. But I will say, I do sit there and wonder, will I miss passionately advocating for a client? And when you're sitting up there listening to both sides of the story, and again, taking the facts that are presented to you, applying the law, and doing what's fair and right and just. Do I know I can do it? I know I can do it without a doubt. But it will be interesting to see as I leave 30 years again of what's been a blessed practice in the law, if I will miss it, to be candid with you.
Set the timer for Nisha on this question number 3.
So I guess because of my experience working so closely with judges, as I stated before, I'm fully aware of what the position is going to require. And I don't have so many concerns about moving to a different position. Being an attorney and representing clients and representing a corporation and advocating for individuals in family court and has been very, very fulfilling to me. But I know I'm ready to take the next step in my career, because I've always had a talent to be able to see all sides and weigh issues. Applying the law to the facts was came very easy to me because I actually worked on writing judicial opinions when I was a law clerk. So the ability to extrapolate the information and put it into formats that were going to support the judge's decision using case law as support was really the essence of what being a judge means to me. I wanted to become a lawyer when I was 8 years old. Since the age of 8, I knew that's what I wanted to do.
Nisha, your screen is freezing.
Okay. Is that better?
Okay.
Good. So like I was saying, I decided at the age of 8 to become an attorney, and I stuck with that decision. When I made the decision to run for this position as judge in the Court of Common Pleas, I was fully aware of what I was giving up and what I was moving into. And I'm super excited to take on a new challenge and do the other side of the job of being an attorney, which is to make sure that everyone gets heard and to hear both sides of every case and to deal with attorneys and deal with clients and deal with the specialty courts. So it's really a great growth and the next step in an attorney's career. So thank you.
Thank you, Nisha. And we're going to go to question number 4. You will start it. So we'll remain on 2 minutes on this one. Question number 4. Do you believe that all people have adequate access to legal assistance and to the legal system in the state of Pennsylvania? If not, as an incoming judge, what would you do or recommend for a better and wider accessibility for legal services for the people you will serve? I will repeat. Do you believe that all people have adequate access to legal assistance and to the legal system in the state of Pennsylvania? If not, as an incoming judge, what would you do or recommend for a better and wider accessibility for legal services for the people you will serve?
So my experience as an attorney is that no, not everyone has equal access to legal services in the Court of Common Pleas. Now, I want to preface this with the fact that I worked throughout the entire state of Pennsylvania, throughout the Northeast region. So I was in many different courthouses, and each courthouse has a very different legal services division or pro bono services that they can offer to underprivileged clients. Lackawanna County, and I know this because we were instituting the system when I was a law clerk, does have the public defender's office on site in the courthouse. So the public defenders are available if a defendant comes in who is unrepresented. I think this is important for multiple reasons because it allows, there's never a time when the defendant will appear in court without an attorney if they don't need to. And it also allows for expediency of cases. That's unfortunately not the case throughout the rest of Pennsylvania. And there are courtrooms where the defendant will be allowed to proceed pro se. They do not like to do that in criminal cases in Lackawanna County as it stands. I think there is also an inequality in access to counsel in family law, particularly based upon socioeconomic status. And I find that problematic because lawyers shouldn't be unaffordable to people. And I think we as attorneys need to take that step to make our services more accessible to people who maybe can't afford us. We have a great pro bono program in Lackawanna County, but I'm not sure that everyone participates in it. I think there are programs that I've read about that are being considered to mandate pro bono work as part of our legal continuing education hours. I think that would probably be helpful in removing those inequalities.
Thank you, Nisha. Mary?
Unmute Mary, please.
Okay, we good? Okay.
Okay.
All right, thank you. My answer to this is no, to be candid. I do not think all people have adequate access to justice. Nisha is correct when she says the public defenders are there for criminal matters, but what I have seen, again, having practiced civil law for the majority of my career is, of course, public defenders do not do civil law. We do not see that same urgency applied to civil matters. Evictions are a great example. Okay, they're going to start coming up now that the moratorium will be done. And we're actually in Lackawanna County, we're putting out a cry for help, to try and help these people so that they can get adequate representation at the magistrate's hearing. We do have Lackawanna pro bono, and I have done my best to participate in that. And I also do informal pro bono. Anyone who owns a law firm knows that there's informal pro bono. But again, there as well, you can fall into what I call an economic trap. You can make a certain amount of money, but it's a little bit over the threshold, but you're not wealthy enough to pay a lawyer. And those are the cases that drive me nuts, because those poor people, they end up not having representation. They'll go over their pro se, and it's not fair because many times it can affect their rights, whether it be, again, if you're dealing with evictions, it could be dealing with children, it could be child custody, it could be the terms of alimony or anything like that. We also have Northeast Pennsylvania Legal Services locally. However, that again is a funding issue. We only have a few lawyers there. They can only do so much work, and trying to get them funding has proven to be a problem. And again, we have legal aid. What we had been trying to do, and it was referred to earlier, is when I was the president of the Bar Association last year, we worked with the president judge. We're attempting to get CLE credits for lawyers that do pro bono work. We do think that will be assistive in trying to help them. It's obviously a large funding issue, which quite frankly is beyond, I don't think judges, unless they can make a plea, they can write a letter, but it's going to be the legislature that's ultimately going to grant additional funding for us to put in these places. Well, I'll stop. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mary. Mary, you're going to go on start first in the next question, number 5. And for the timekeeper, we're going to increase this answer to 3 minutes instead of 2. So this is 3 minutes instead of 2 for the response. So question number 5. Without disclosing specifics of cases, can you share to what extent have you practiced in the following areas of 3, criminal law, family law, complex civil litigation? The other part to this question is cite at least one example for any of the 3, which is the criminal law, family law, complex civil litigation. For example, possible issues in the domestic violence case, such as a PFA or case law. Again, I will repeat that question. Without disclosing specifics of cases, can you share to what extent have you practiced in the following areas of criminal law, family law, complex civil litigation? Cite at least one example for any of the 3, criminal law, family law, complex civil litigation. An example, possible issues in a domestic violence case, PFA, or case law. Mary?
Thank you. I'm going to start with family law like I did last time, because I think we had this question at one other point in our, whether it be debates or forums. The only time I have actively practiced family law is to guide family or friends through the system, which would be on an informal basis. I have not practiced it to actually represent a client. Number 2, criminal law. I have practiced criminal law in 2 forms. Number 1 is criminal defense. I've actually tried a case to verdict with criminal defense early in my career. And I spent time at the Lackawanna County District Attorney's Office, where I was assigned to the Scranton Housing Authority. It was actually quite interesting. It was to public housing matters. And during that time, I was in charge of, if there was any type of prosecution relative to crimes that occurred on housing authority property, that would have been my purview. We did a lot of community policing because we were concerned about preventing crime in that area. I actually had to go on a drug raid, put on the bulletproof vest, and I went on the drug raid, and just back and forth with the residents, trying to let them know that we were there. I also had to do magistrates hearings regarding a variety of topics. So the third one, of course, complex civil litigation is really where I have spent. I would say civil litigation has been the majority of my career, but of course, complex civil litigation has been a part of it. And it's been a variety. I talked earlier about protracted cases that I have handled over in Lackawanna County. I've done class actions. You won't find too many lawyers in Lackawanna County who've done class action work. I've also done multi-district litigation work, which is when class actions are across the country, and for efficiency purposes or for logistical purposes, one judge takes hold of them and he or she will do the scheduling orders and will handle them. I do believe in my case, if recollection serves me correct, I was in Ohio. And again, I do have to tap dance a little because I can say certain things about the case, but not other things. It was a class action litigation, and it was under the Pennsylvania Minimum Wage Act and the Fair Labor Standards Act. It was a large group of people, a class of people, I will say, without naming what class, who were being underpaid. And it came into me quite interestingly on a workers' comp case, and she told me how she was being paid. And I said, that doesn't sound right. Plain and simple, I knew that didn't sound right. So I worked with another lawyer on that. Again, it was multi-district litigation. And so you worked with lawyers from other states, and you consolidated your discovery and you consolidated your depositions. And at one point, if the case didn't resolve, there would have been a trial. In this matter, the case did resolve. So just in terms, I think you said, say a little bit about the law, the Pennsylvania Minimum Wage Act and the Fair Labor Standards Act, very complex, but in a nutshell, protects workers' rights to be paid the right wage and to make sure they're paid the right overtime. Oh, perfect timing.
Thank you. Nisha, same question.
Okay, so basically, the Court of Common Pleas is a unique court in Lackawanna County because it's the court of first instance. And we are not like Philadelphia County in that the judges go and specialize in certain areas of law. So I think this is a really important question because I think a trial judge should have real courthouse and real trial experience. So with criminal law, I worked for Judge Michael Barrace, who does almost exclusively criminal law in Lackawanna County. So I was able to work on a murder trial, which was really, really powerful. I'm not going to say it was a great experience because obviously it was a murder trial and it was a murder of a little girl, a 2-year-old girl. And so that was a very career-changing experience. That trial made me realize that I did not want to be a prosecutor. We had the ability to work on a lot of drug cases, went to trial. So we did a lot of drug cases, and there were 2 particular rape of a child cases that I remember very distinctly. One of them was my first week as a law clerk. So I'm surprised I continued on because it was very intense, but seeing the dynamics of the courtroom and the jury selection and the pretrial motions that go into these serious criminal cases makes you understand that our justice system is not something to be taken lightly, and due process is afforded to people. With regard to family law, obviously, I've spent the majority, well, I guess many years litigating in family law. So like I said before, I was not just in Lackawanna County. We traveled to quite a few counties to cover cases because I worked for quite a prominent family law practice in town. Family law is interesting because nobody's happy to be there. Nobody's really excited that it's their day in court. So you have to manage a lot of expectations. There's complex litigation that goes along with family law. Divorce cases can involve many assets that need to be divided. There's valuations of pensions, there's valuations of real estate, and then of course there's the custody matters that go along with that. So a custody trial can be a multi-day trial. I did a 3-day custody trial in Pottstown, Pennsylvania. I had the opportunity to do an international custody trial in federal court, which was great. Those cases do not have juries. So there's no juries associated with those. That is just you, the witnesses, the lawyers, and the judge. I did a multi-day international custody case in Pike County also, and that was a really great experience because it allowed me to use my international law background. So I have a 3rd degree in international law, I have my master's in law from University College London. So I was really excited to use that because obviously you don't get to use international law much in family law litigation. With regard to complex civil litigation, I've been counsel and taken cases to trial with regard to tax claim issues and setting aside tax claim sales. There was an issue with a banking case that I had to deal with. And then also we've done some breach of contract cases also. So that would be the breadth of my experience.
All right, thank you. All right, Nisha, you are starting the next one. So question number 6. Question number 6. How would you prepare yourself to handle cases involving unfamiliar areas of the law as a judge? As an attorney, have you ever been unfamiliar with an area of law in practice? And I'll repeat. How would you prepare yourself to handle cases involving unfamiliar areas of the law as a judge? As an attorney, have you ever been unfamiliar with an area of law in practice?
We have 90 seconds for this question. 2 minutes? Okay, all right, thank you. So I think the best way to prepare yourself to hear cases in areas of law that you might be unfamiliar with as a judge is obviously to do your homework. We all went to law school. Homework was a big thing. Law school was a lot of reading and studying. And sometimes that is what you need to do, even at the height of your profession as an attorney. You have to go back to the books. So every area of the law has a code, Pennsylvania code, that goes along with it. That's created by the legislature. It's our job as judges to apply that law to the facts in front of us. So the first thing to do is become familiar with that area of law. They used to be big books with everything, and you could go through the index and look at the parts of the statutes that you need. Now everything's online. It's much easier. You can just search for it and read through the different area of the law that you are going to be faced with making a decision on. As an attorney, yes, I have been faced with taking care of cases in areas of the law that I am unfamiliar with. Probably many times, because nobody knows everything, right? So you have to do your due diligence. I think as an attorney, you do have an obligation to maybe not go beyond the scope of what you think you have actual knowledge and experience in taking cases. But at sometimes you end up in a case that moves in a direction that you're no longer familiar with. So as an attorney, you can always call in co-counsel to help you, but you can do the same thing, which is go back to the books and research the area of law that you are working in. I think the attorneys in our area are also very generous with their time and knowledge. So you can always reach out and phone a friend for some help on maybe how to best attack the case that's in front of you. And to go back as a judge, you also have the benefit of law clerks to do research for you. So that's really helpful. So that's it.
Thank you. Mary?
Thank you.
Your response?
Thank you. I think an attorney would be disingenuous if they said that there was never a time when they were unfamiliar with an area of law, because even when we first get out of law school, they teach you a variety of topics, but they don't teach you any type of specialty in any particular type of law historically. So, getting right out of law school, I went into employment law. And of course, I had to learn it. Sometimes you're learning it when you're sitting down with the clients. You're researching really is basically the answer. You're calling other lawyers who are practitioners in the area. You're asking questions. You're doing everything that you have to do to make sure that you understand what you need to know before you walk into a hearing or a motion or a trial. It's funny because we just did a recent ad and I had to put together the types of law that I had practiced, and I came up with 21 distinct practice areas. So at some point in my career, at each time, I had to sit down and learn those. It's certainly not something that just comes to you, but you take your transferable skills as well. A lot of law is transferable skills. You're a good oral advocate. You're a good legal researcher. You think on your feet. You have good common sense. You can make strong, good decisions. You get along well with other lawyers. Judges respect you. So you're allowed to use a lot of that. This similar thing, just by way of analogy, actually happened to me when I was on Scranton City Council. While I was going in there with what I thought was a lot of strong transferable skills, I ended up realizing, I don't know much about budgets and roads and the DPW and everything that goes along with running a city. So I really, really had to study. I had to learn. My kids know I set up an office in my house and I just went at it. I mean, that's all I can tell you I did. I got every book. I called everybody I could and I learned it. And, you know, I like to think I did very well during my 6 months on city council. So it's something lawyers are used to. It's something that doesn't shock us. We think on our feet a lot. And, you know, same thing with being a judge. If there's anything that's new or different, you know, you learn it. It comes to you.
All right, thank you, Mary. You're going to start the next question. Question number 7. Some studies have shown that judges' ruling is sometimes influenced by their own ideas about proper male and female gender roles. What are your views on whether the court system in Pennsylvania deals effectively with racial and gender biases? I will repeat that question. Some studies have shown that judges' ruling is sometimes influenced by their own ideas about proper male and female gender roles. What are your views on whether the court system in Pennsylvania deals effectively with racial and gender biases? Mary, you may begin.
Thank you. I will say I have personally never been a victim of what you have described. However, I do read a lot of, you know, legal journals and I do read a lot of legal periodicals. And I do know, not so much here, because I do think we have a wonderful bench and it's been a pleasure to practice in front of them. But in other areas, you know, women have been chastised for wearing the clothes they wore. They have been called honey. As a matter of fact, I sent around an email blast. It was about 3 years ago. The ABA had finally come out with a declaration that judges were no longer allowed to call women honey in the courtroom. And I thought, wow, did that take a long time? So, you know, obviously there can be some old-fashioned views on some topics. I have, you know, in terms of the racial, to be quite frank with you, I have never experienced that with a client either. Everyone has been just very, very respectful. But again, having been a woman in that role, I can say that what I've read and what I've seen was cause for concern. I will also say this, in the 30 years that I've been practicing, I have seen a tremendous improvement in this. When I first started practicing, I think now it might even be more than 50-50 women. It might be 60% women, 40% men. It was not that way 30 years ago, and it was especially not that way in litigation. And I know we're talking about judicial treatment of women, but I would be remiss if I didn't say that there was some male treatment of me early in my career that I did not feel was acceptable. I will say this, if that does happen, whether it's by the judiciary or by another male lawyer, I think there's a duty to speak out, whether it's based on race, age, sex, disability, any type of protected class. I think that everybody, this goes back to our equal access to justice in the courts. Everybody deserves fair and equal treatment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Nisha, your response to this question?
So I do believe that there is evidence of racial and gender bias in our court system. I know that there was a committee put together in 1999 by the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania to examine this issue. And that was put together at the request of the former governor, Ed Rendell, I think. So, or Tom Ridge, sorry. So the committee's findings demonstrated that there was clear bias on behalf of the court system against individuals affecting the way that they were treated. So be it party witness, litigant, lawyer, court employee, or potential juror. So I think the question applies more to just the attorneys and the defendants and plaintiffs that are appearing in the court system, but also to everybody who walks through the doors. And our bench in Lackawanna County, we elected our first female judge in 1997. So while we may have made some progressions, we haven't gone past that to diversify the bench at all. I think that the bar in Lackawanna County needs to make a commitment to diversity. There are not that many diverse attorneys to pull from a pool of diversity to create that diversity. So coming from a minority background myself, I think my views on the issue obviously are a little bit more real life. I never experienced any sort of discrimination in Lackawanna County itself, but in the surrounding counties, yes, it has been an issue, and it's been a real issue. Part of the reason that I'm running for this position is to diversify the bench. I think it's a really important step that we make in Lackawanna County. We need to keep being progressive and keep moving forward. I want everyone who lives in this county to feel that they'll have a fair shake in my courtroom. I've seen personally firsthand the demographics of this county expand, and I think it's time that we give adequate representation to everybody.
Thank you. I'm sorry about that. Okay. All right, so let's move on to the next question. Nisha, you will start the next one. Question number 8. As an incoming judge, if you observed a party in your courtroom being poorly represented by an unprepared and ineffective lawyer, how would you handle this situation? As an incoming judge, if you observed a party in your courtroom being poorly represented by an unprepared or ineffective lawyer, how would you handle the situation?
I think the first thing that you have to do is stop the proceeding that's going on and maybe have a conference with both attorneys and both parties to ensure that adequate representation is going to occur. The judicial canons are very clear on your responsibilities as a judge, ethically and morally, but there are also rules of legal professional conduct that have to be abided by. So as an attorney, you have a duty to zealously represent your client. If you are unable to do so, other attorneys have a duty to notify the court of that problem or whatever the issue is. So I don't think in any way that a hearing should continue. I think you can pull the attorneys aside into chambers and find out what's going on. There's different ways of appointing new counsel. Obviously, you're going to have to disrupt the case to do that. But I think as a sitting judge, you have a clear duty to stop any ineffective, clearly ineffective representation before it gets to the point where the individual or the client's rights are being affected. And that goes to due process in criminal litigation. So obviously, if you don't do that, and then there's an appeal based upon the ineffective representation, your decision can be overturned. There is an act in criminal law called the Post-Conviction Relief Act that allows defendants to appeal the decision based upon ineffective representation. So you can imagine that this is abused quite a bit in criminal law, but it was enacted by the legislature to prevent the issue of ineffective representation in criminal cases. I think the problem exists in civil cases too. And obviously it's going to get fixed if the standards come from the top down, and all attorneys know that they're expected to be on their game and ready to go to represent their clients in court. Thank you.
Thank you, Nisha. Mary, your response?
Thank you. Yes, I think it's important to remember, though, all around that a judge is not an advocate. A judge is not one of the lawyers down in front of him or her making the arguments. And, you know, we use the term someone who's being poorly represented or ineffective counsel. I've sat in courtrooms, and I'm sure Nisha has, where objections should have been made and they weren't. Judges did not stop the hearings to tell those people, guess what, you should have made the objections. So I think there's a little bit of a clarification that needs to be made here. Is the lawyer who is ineffective, is he inebriated or she inebriated? That's different, okay? But if the person is just down there and has been paid a certain amount of money and isn't acting or living up to your standards, there's all types of lawyers in this county and in the state and in the country, okay? Some are A lawyers, some are C lawyers. So it's not up to the judge, in my opinion, to take the C lawyer aside or to stop the proceeding and say, hey, guess what? You need to do this. You should have done this better. We also have a couple other avenues we can talk about. We have lawyers concerned about lawyers, okay? If a lawyer or a judge sees another lawyer maybe it's a mental illness, maybe it's a drug use issue, maybe it's alcoholism, we can call that hotline miscellaneously and report that lawyer. From that point on, lawyers concerned about lawyers takes it over and provides treatment free of charge, or at least a referral for treatment. You can hold them in contempt in some cases, okay, depending on how bad the situation is. Is their behavior screaming and yelling back at you? Okay, that could be a contempt system, a contempt issue. So again, I've just been in so many situations where maybe lawyers haven't done what they should have done, or they haven't acted perfect, but hearings weren't stopped. I mean, hearings went on because it's really not up to the judges to define what is the right level of representation that each person receives. So again, depending on the circumstances, I think there's a variety of issues a new judge coming in can do, but I think you have to look at it very carefully before you take any appropriate action.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we're moving along. So I'm going to ask, we have a few more questions, but I'm checking on Diana. How much time do we have left?
I don't think the Zoom will end until we end it. We did plan to go approximately an hour, but we don't have a hard stop.
Got it. All right, so the next question, Mary, we'll start with you. And for the timekeeper, we'll increase this to 3 minutes for this response. According to the Pennsylvania Bar Association's Judicial Evaluation Commission, the rich diversity of backgrounds among members of the judiciary is an important strength of our judicial system. And therefore, a candidate's non-legal experience should be considered together with the candidate's legal experience. Ladies, what form of voluntary, professional, and community service have you been involved with in the past, and are you currently involved with presently? Again, according to the Pennsylvania Bar Association's Judicial Evaluation Commission, the rich diversity of backgrounds among members of the judiciary is an important strength of our judicial system. And therefore, a candidate's non-legal experience should be considered together with the candidate's legal experience. What forms of voluntary, professional, and community service have you been involved with in the past, and are you currently involved with?
Okay, thank
Mary.
you. Thank you. I'm going to start off with a couple legal ones, and I'm going to go over to charitable endeavors because the legal ones are volunteer as well. I started to be involved with the Lackawanna Bar Association about 8 years ago when I was asked to be on the board of directors. And each year you have to run for that position. You slowly but surely move up each year if you get reelected, senior director, et cetera. I was then asked to run for vice president, and then I was asked to run for president. That is a volunteer position, and that actually kind of refers back to another role where I have to use my administrative skills now that I think about it, where I had to run the Bar Association for 1 year. That is a volunteer position. You do it in addition to your regular job. Right now, I am the post president. I'm 1 year out, so I'm still involved. I'm still at all the board meetings. I'm still very active with our current president, Tom Cummings, who is a dear friend of mine. We bounce ideas off each other. So that's one way. I'm also involved with the Pennsylvania Bar Association, and I've been involved with them. So I'm going to say that was 3 to 5 years. I'm estimating, to be candid with you. I'm on 3 committees within the Civil and Equal Rights Committee, which is an appointment by the president, I believe. I'm on the mentoring committee, where we take young lawyers who are coming out of law school, they're assigned a mentor, and we help them with the transition into the legal profession. And I'm also on the COVID-19 committee. When that happened last March, President Ann John picked 16 members from across the state. And I'm the only one who was picked in Lackawanna County to be on that, so that we could provide kind of an emergency response to legal practitioners relative to COVID. So those are some of my bar functions that I remain involved in and that I'm involved in on a volunteer level. I'd like to mention the time I spent on Scranton City Council. That was, although it was 6 months, it was 6 of the best months of my life. I was really able to serve the citizens well. I know people respected me for what I did there. I was always transparent. I was always outspoken. I always came down on what I felt was the right side of the issue, regardless of special interests. Now, in terms of additional charitable endeavors that I may be involved in, over the past, again, I'll say 3 to 4 or 5 years, I've been involved with the United Way Fund. That has been more important than ever with COVID and with the financial distresses many people have suffered. There's 5 attorney co-chairs. Last year, I was one of the co-chairs. I am still one of the co-chairs, but we brought in a younger generation to kind of assist us, which involves making calls, attending meetings, and trying to get our other local lawyers to contribute. I'm involved in my church. I'm a Eucharistic minister. I have been doing that for 10 to 15 years. I'm very active in my neighborhood association. I've been involved with them. I do the neighborhood cleanups. I basically do anything they ask me to. I'm very dedicated to it because it's also the neighborhood I grew up in. I'm involved with pro bono. Like I said, the year before I was president of the Bar Association, I was on the pro bono board. I will do what they ask me to if it, is okay with my schedule. And then I'm also part of the Lindy mentoring program at Pennsylvania State University, where again, we mentor students transitioning into the business world.
Right, thank you.
Thank you.
Nisha, your response?
So we actually pursue a variety of different projects, both myself individually and with my family. Obviously, I'm a first generation American, so I have a lot of family who still lives in India, and being successful in this country allows us to really give back there. One of the biggest important tenets I was raised with was the importance of education, and females don't always have the same ability to pursue an education in India as we do here in the United States. So about 9 years ago, we started a school in Chandigarh, India, to help girls pursue education and allow girls to go to school. A lot of times, young girls as young as 12 are married off by their families because female children are seen as a burden, because you have to pay to have them married. There's still a dowry system there. So sending these girls to school, paying for their tuition, their books, their clothes, has really shown me what an education can do, because a little bit of money goes a really long way in a country like India, and they're able to change the trajectory of their lives completely, with just even a general 12th grade education. Recently, because of the pandemic, it was my husband works in the produce industry, and he started to notice in the course of his business a lot of supply chain shortages. Now you're just hearing about all of those on the news. They have actually been existing for over a year and a half now, actually. So there was a fear in Lackawanna County, because we do not have our own food bank. We share a food bank with Luzerne County and some other surrounding counties, that there would be a food shortage. So after speaking to the superintendent of Abington Heights and realizing how many families were still coming to get daily meals, we realized that there was a lot of food insecurity, and to see that in our own community was very disturbing. So we were able to procure over 2 million pounds of produce and bring it to the area. We worked with Friends of the Poor, the Salvation Army, Abington Heights School District, and then we did a food box donation at the Archbold's firehouse. So there was a line 2 miles long of people picking up food boxes. So to see that and to be able to kind of address that issue directly with the people who needed the help was amazing. And a great thank you to all the great organizations we worked with for that. For the 4th of July, we were able to do a big watermelon giveaway. So we did that for all the first responders, and again, worked with the Salvation Army to help them raise money through that. We have always worked with the St. Francis Kitchen, doing weekly food donations and hosts for the day. And I currently sit on the Chamber of Commerce, on the board of the Chamber of Commerce. So whatever work I can do to raise money for the city is what we do there.
Thank you, Nisha.
Thank you.
All right, so we're going to go to the next question, and Nisha will start this one. What do you believe accounts for the high rate of incarceration of people of color in the Lackawanna County? You have 2 minutes. What do you believe accounts for the high rate of incarceration of people of color in the Lackawanna County?
I think this is a very important question for us to answer, and I think it does have sort of a multifaceted answer. I don't think it's as simple as, oh, well, because like people keep doing bad things. I think when you come from a minority background, in certain instances, you are faced with challenges that result in a cycle of incarceration. So lack of education, lack of a family structure, because a lot of people who continue to get incarcerated, especially if we're referring to young Black males, did not have a father figure in their lives. So there are many studies showing that the failure of fathers is part of this cycle. I think also lack of education and not continuing and staying in school contributes to it. I think that Lackawanna County has made great strides to break the cycle of incarceration with the specialty courts. So Lackawanna County has multiple specialty courts and diversionary programs, and the judges have worked really hard to provide options or provide programming to people who are repeat offenders to figure out why do they keep committing these crimes? Why do they keep committing petty crimes? Why do they keep, so major crimes obviously aren't allowed in the diversionary programs, but a lot of the crimes are related to addiction. And obviously addiction is one of the scourges of the Lackawanna Valley that we do face. So the answer is it's multifaceted, but I think that the diversionary courts and the specialty courts and the treatment courts, which I had great opportunity to work in, and they're fantastic. They're models for the entire country and the entire world, really do work to break that cycle of incarceration.
All right, thank you, Nisha. Mary, your response?
Thank you. I've actually been reading a lot about this, especially in terms of juvenile incarceration relative to race. And what I have found and what I have seen is that there is a very big connection between illiteracy and incarceration. And there's also a large connection between illiteracy and recidivism. And some of the rationale that has been given for that, and of course, illiteracy crosses all branches, okay? But I'm going to answer your question relative to the way you posed it to me. If they have not been taught to read, if they have not been provided with the proper education, or if they've been provided with the proper education but have decided not to utilize it or to accept it as it has been given to them, you start to look at their options. You know, what type of job are they going to get? If they can't find a job, what if they have a child at a young age? How are they going to feed their family? Well, they're going to steal, unfortunately. You know, this is, again, I go back to violent offenders. I'm kind of putting aside right now. I think that's a separate issue. But I do believe there's something that to be said that if we start to do something earlier with people and with reading, can we help this? Can we save this? Can we change this? Now, do I think it's going to be a complete, 360 and this is going to solve everything? Absolutely not. I understand the problem is deeper than this. Sometimes there is a lack of family structure, and sometimes it's you live what you learn, with all due respect. People see it and they think it's the right thing. And sometimes they are, in terms of addiction and in terms of drugs and alcohol, they are trying to escape their own reality. And, by doing that, they think, and when they're on drugs, when they're on alcohol, I call it the beer muscles, they go out and they do something stupid. So there are so many factors. This is so multifaceted. But I thought that was interesting about the illiteracy. And I thought it was also interesting that when they come out of jail, they're just as likely to go back in if the illiteracy issue is not taken care of.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you. We're going to move on to the next question. And Mary, we'll start with you. What factors do you believe should be considered in granting and setting bail amounts for the defendants? What factors do you believe should be considered in granting and setting bail amounts for defendants?
Am I first?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't know that. Well, I think there's a variety of factors, and I actually think there's factors that we have to look at, but I can tell you what I think are some of the most important ones. Number one is obviously what was the crime. If there's any type of violence or sexual assault or anything like that, you've got to look at the crime. You've got to look at what happened, how it happened, to whom it happened, where it happened. That's number one. You also have to look at, these are just things, let's assume it's white collar for whatever reason. I know they, you look at what, is this person going to flee? Is there a likelihood this person's going to flee? If it's a youngster or a youth, what type of mechanisms or what type of family do they have around him or her that might support them during the time while they're waiting for their trial, that type of thing. It's a variety of things that just have to be looked at as a whole. I'm trying to think of what else it would be. Obviously, yeah, had they done it before? If they're back here a third, a fourth, a fifth time, obviously some of these things are going to be answered for us. We're not going to have to make, hard decisions. If this is the fourth time I'm looking at someone for the same thing, bail is not going to be high on my mind. So those are some of the things that I'm thinking of just off the top of my head that I would take a good hard look at. But I'm confident there's a sheet over there and there's a formula over there that tells you exactly what to do. And obviously it also tells you what to set. Is the bail $5,000 for someone who took a pack of penny gum from the local store, or is it you don't get bail because you murdered somebody? So those are all it's a totality of the circumstances approach really is what it is, and you have to look at it very holistically and very globally to make sure that you're approaching and accepting all the factors and that all the factors and that you look at any of the reports that are given to you to make sure you're making the right decisions, because one wrong decision can be very, very bad in these situations. That's it.
Thank you, Mary. Nisha, your response?
Well, there actually are factors in the code of the rules of criminal procedure that govern setting bail. So it's the prior record score, if any, the severity of the crime, and the judge then has some discretion basically to look at the propensity of the defendant as a flight risk. So monetary bail, also the judge has to keep in mind that there's a plethora of bail bondsmen who have appeared in our area. So for a 10% bond, they will go bail the defendant out. So even if you set a bail that you think is fair, then it will be enough to keep that defendant in jail. There are loopholes around that. A lot of bail is set at ROR, released on own reconnaissance, for small crimes, because like we talked about before, the repeat offenders, their socioeconomic status really prevents them from running. So running on bail is not as common as you think. And bail violators are picked up. The sheriff's department goes around once a week and picks up anyone who violated the conditions of their bail. There's also ways to set bail that prevent the defendant, it is a totality of the circumstances approach. You also have to keep in mind that you can't always keep people in prison, because Rule 600 starts to tick too. So if the case is going to take longer, you might have to release them on bail to make sure that you have enough time to get the case and the hearing in. So those are just some of the personal experiences I've had while being in criminal court with the judges granting bail to defendants.
All right, thank you, Nisha. I'll provide you one more question and then we will go to closing. Is that okay, ladies? Good. All right, so last question before closing. Please describe your firsthand experience, if any, dealing with people who are different from you socially, economically, or politically. Please describe your firsthand experience, if any, dealing with people who are different from you socially, economically, and politically. Nisha, you may start.
So this is a really cool question, because I think the viewers will sort of get to know a little bit more about our personality apart from us being really serious attorneys. Every day in my job, I get to deal with people who are different from me socially, politically. What I get to do every day allows me to meet new people every day. And it's been an amazing experience to see all of the different cultures who have moved into our area. like last week, I think 3 out of 5 closings were non-native English speakers with interpreters. So I had clients from Honduras that were living in New York that moved here. I had some Indian clients. This is like such a great story because they have been in Scranton for 2 years, and in 2 years they were able to save up enough money to buy a home. So they're no longer renters, and home ownership is something that's very close to my heart because that is part of the American dream. And, you know, being the child of immigrants, these are all issues that affect me. I'm trying to think of what else. I guess my husband is a different religion than me. I'm Hindu, and I recently got married in June. So my husband is Jewish. So I'm being truly embraced into his culture and his Jewish religion. I went to temple for Rosh Hashanah, and I met the rabbi, and he was just so warm and embracing. Like I live a very broad life here in Lackawanna County with a lot of different experiences and exposure to a lot of different cultures, and that's the greatest part, is that you get to meet people every day who aren't like you, because that's how you grow as a human being, I think. So thank you.
Thank you, Nisha. Mary, your response?
Thank you. I'm just going to speak about politically first, and then I'm going to go on to socially and economically, because I think that's where I've had the most experience. Politically, I think I just do my best to respect everybody's opinion. We each are allowed to have our own. You agree or you disagree, but I think it's polite to respect. If there's going to be a healthy dialogue, that's perfectly fine. But there does come a point where you realize they have their opinion, you have your opinion, and there may not be a meet in the middle position. So that's kind of how I've tried to deal with that. Socially and economically, I have, throughout the course of my career, I've handled what's called volume work, especially in the first 20 years of my career at O'Malley and Langan, meaning we had clients in and out the door all day, every day. It was not uncommon to have an appointment at 9, 10, and 11. You took a break for lunch and you had an appointment at 1, 2, 3, and 4. They were of all, social backgrounds, all economic backgrounds, and quite frankly, all types of other backgrounds, racial, national origin, religious, etc. It's nothing I have ever had a problem with. In fact, I embrace it with all due respect. Much of my career has been dedicated to protecting what I'll call the protected classes under Title VII: race, sex, age, disability, national origin, religious affiliation, sexual orientation. I've made a large practice of doing that and of making sure that everybody is treated equally. So when I meet someone, whether it's socially, whether it's, wherever I am, maybe it's in a courthouse, I go out of my way to embrace them and to listen to them. I also believe there's something you can learn from everybody. I really do. And for most cases, if you're sitting with someone who has a different social upbringing than you, a different economic upbringing than you, and you start to talking, first of all, you're usually going to find some common ground, which I always like. But second of all, you're always usually going to learn something from them, and something that you can take away from the conversation, and something that's going to make you a better person all around. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary, and thank you both for answering the questions and allowing myself, the League of Women Voters for Lackawanna County, and our viewers and the voters to get a little insight of each of you. So at this point in time, I would like to invite the candidates to give their closing statements, and that would be based on the drawing as we discussed. And I believe Nisha Arora, our Republican primary candidate, would begin the closing.
Thank you. And I want to start by thanking the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum. It truly is a remarkable event in the campaign trail. Your questions were very thoughtful and very, very insightful, I think, into the issues that we are facing here in Lackawanna County. So in closing, my name is Nisha Arora. I am the Republican nominee, or the Republican candidate, for the upcoming election for the judicial position in the Lackawanna County Court of Common Pleas. My experience is varied and broad, and I think that my experience is important because it makes me most qualified for this position. My experience as a law clerk has taught me how to actually run a courtroom. I've been present with the judge, working hand in hand to seat juries and work through trials. I think one of the most important qualities that this new judge is going to have is that experience with juries, because doing a jury trial is like no other experience, and you can't replicated unless you've done it yourself. As a family court litigator, I represented hundreds of clients in divorce and custody trials throughout Pennsylvania, not just in Lackawanna County. I've argued cases before the Superior Court. I've done 2 international custody cases, as I said earlier. One was in federal court. I've not been in just one courtroom. I've been in hundreds of courtrooms. Now, from working in the private sector, I've also been able to expand my experience. Working as a private attorney has taught me how to lead by example, how to think on my feet, and how to create success through hard work and ingenuity. Creative problem solving is my greatest skill. And all of this combined with my background and my life experience, living abroad and learning about other cultures makes me truly prepared and ready to serve as judge on day one. I think it's important to remember that the newest judge will probably be put in the family court division, and that's where the strength of my experience is. So thank you.
Thank you, Nisha. Mary Dempsey, you're closing.
Please,
Okay, thank you. I as well want to thank the league for this forum. I think the main thing voters need to look at here is experience. I've had 30 years full-time practicing law, which is a true commitment not only to the law, but to my clients and to the principles of justice. I've handled plaintiff and defense, which means I've handled both sides of cases. I've done civil and criminal law, including complex civil cases. I also worked as an assistant district attorney at the Lackawanna County District Attorney's Office. I practiced in both state and federal court. I've tried cases in both courts, and yes, they were to juries. And I've handled arbitrations and mediations, both as a participant and as the arbitrator and or the mediator. I've also been involved at the appellate level as well, including the Superior Court, the Commonwealth Court, the Third Circuit Court of Appeals, and the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. We talked about my strong record of community involvement, the United Way, my church, my neighborhood association, and of course, the time I spent serving the residents of the city of Scranton on Scranton City Council, where I was an honest and outspoken voice for what was right. I was the president of the Lackawanna Bar Association last year, important because I was the only 6th female to hold that role in over 100 years, clearly proving that I'm well respected by my attorney peers who elected me to that role. People like to describe me as strong, intelligent, and articulate, and I maintain my integrity, my ethics, my morals, and values at all times. I can be patient but firm, but also very open-minded. I'm pragmatic and I'm solution-oriented. Clients place their confidence, faith, and trust in me each and every day to always do what's right, and I will treat everyone who comes in my courtroom each day with dignity and respect. I maintain a work ethic that's second to none, and you have my personal promise that I will be impartial and independent at all times. I'm well-versed in the law, having handled 21 different areas of law in 30 years, and I'm intimately familiar with the PA rules of court and the PA rules of evidence. For these reasons, I'm confident that I'm the most qualified, capable, and experienced candidate for judge, and I would respectfully request your vote on November 2nd. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. And in closing, we thank each of you, the candidates, Ms. Nisha Arora and Ms. Mary Walsh Dempsey, for giving us this time to engage with our voters. Thank you for watching this program of the League of Women Voters of Lackawanna County. Be sure to vote on November 2nd. If you have already done so, be sure to register to vote by October 18th. So again, be sure to vote. This is for our voters. Be sure to vote on November 2nd. If you have not already done so, be sure to register to vote by October 18th. Ladies, both Mary Dempsey Walsh and Nisha Arora, thank you so much for giving us the opportunity.
Thank you.
And thank you to the league for allowing me to moderate this event. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you. Bye. Have a good night, everyone.